Throwback weekend is in the rearview mirror, and we have plenty to discuss this week as drivers in all three series broke their winless streaks. We're also going to be talking about John Hunter Nemechek nearly taken out by a beer can thrown by a fan from the stands and why it is time to move the interviews back to victory lane. We'll also talk about Kyle Busch's parking job on pit road Sunday and the controversial finish between William Byron and Joey Logano in the Cup race. We'll discuss that and much more on this episode of 3 Wide. So starting off Throwback weekend, we had the Truck Series on Friday night. You had John Hunter Nemechek and Ty Majeski starting on row 1. And stage 1, Parker Kligerman would come away with a stage victory and a pretty exciting finish. You had 4 trucks really under a blanket: John Hunter Nemechek, Parker Kligerman, Chandler Smith, and Grant Enfinger all right there running together trying to get the stage win. Parker, he would ultimately get it off of having fresher tires than John Hunter, and was able to get by him. Ross Chastain would finish in second, Carson Hocevar in third, and Grant Enfinger in fourth. Chandler Smith would finish in fifth, and John Hunter Nemechek was able to salvage a sixth-place finish. You had Tanner Gray in seventh, Ben Rhodes in eighth. You then had Stuart Friesen in ninth, and Ty Majeski in 10th. Now in stage 2, you had Carson Hocevar able to keep his solid race going and get a stage win in stage 2, followed by Ross Chastain again finishing in second and Parker Kligerman in third. Grant Enfinger finished in fourth, followed by John Hunter Nemechek in fifth. Christian Eckes, he would finish in sixth, followed by Ryan Preece in seventh. Ben Rhodes would get eighth, followed by Chandler Smith in ninth and Corey Heim in 10th. And through the first 2 stages, John Hunter Nemechek, he looked like he was the guy to beat. But you also had drivers like Carson Hocevar with a very strong truck, Parker Kligerman. He looked to was kind of the dark horse. He had a good, solid top 5, top 3 truck. Ross Chastain, always a guy to watch in any race he's in now. Grant Enfinger had a strong truck. So you had a lot of different players up front, a lot of different storylines as far as who could win the race. You know, John Hunter trying to break his winless streak, Carson Hocevar trying to break through and get his first win. It was setting up to be a very exciting finish in the Truck Series race, and it definitely did not disappoint. Ultimately, John Hunter was able to get the win, holding off Carson Hocevar on a late race restart. Carson would finish in second, followed by Grant Enfinger in third. Ty Majeski would finish in fourth, and Parker Kligerman in fifth. Ryan Preece would come home in sixth, and you had Zane Smith in seventh. Tyler Ankrum would finish in eighth. Then you had Todd Bodine in ninth and Matt DiBenedetto in 10th. And for Todd, it was his first top 10 since all the way back to 2012. And Matt DiBenedetto, he was able to come back. He had an early flat tire, had to scratch and claw to get his way back up there in the top 10, and was able to get his third one of the season. And ultimately, it was in thanks to Matt Crafton, where unfortunately for him, he was disqualified after he failed post-race tech, and that allowed Matt DiBenedetto to get that top 10 finish. You also had Ryan Preece finishing 6th, as I've said. He is now 3 for 3 in the races he's run this year. Each one he's gotten a top 10 finish. And Parker Kligerman, again, continues to impress for Henderson Motorsports. He had a strong shot at winning until some late race restarts didn't go his way. He's going to be missing the next 4 races, but he will be back for Sonoma. So hopefully they can hold on to the momentum they've had. They've been able to get at the start of this truck season and get another good, strong showing at Sonoma. But the big deal and the storyline that happened after the race was when being interviewed by Jamie Little at the start-finish line after winning, John Hunter, he nearly gets hit by a pretty much full beer can that a fan had thrown from the crowd. As John Hunter's talking, thanking his sponsors, all of a sudden you hear this loud bang and something bounce off the back of the truck. Obviously, threw John Hunter off. He's looking around trying to figure out what just happened. You could hear the crowd kind of groaning when it happened. Like, that could have been really bad. And this is where I think NASCAR really needs to start taking a look at moving these interviews back to victory lane. They started years ago doing the interview at the start-finish line after a race with the winner just to get to capture the raw emotion of the driver and his excitement. Well, I think it's time for that experiment to end, just mainly because I don't see where it's caused more memorable moments than anything that happened in victory lane with drivers before. You know, you've had your moments with the start-finish line interviews for sure, but you've also had some incidents that don't really shine the best light on the sport. You know, obviously the big one is at Talladega with Brandon Brown winning his first race, and you had the crowd chanting, you know, some vulgar things, and obviously that led to the birth of the Let's Go Brandon chant. Ultimately, you know, pretty much ruined what was supposed to be a special moment for this kid who got his first career Xfinity win with this small team. Could have led to, you know, great things, great sponsor opportunities, or a shot at a bigger ride, who knows. And ultimately that was ruined by this start-finish line interview. Then this one, which to me is worse, where you get a fan who's not happy with the finish of the race or not happy with who wins it and decides to throw something from the stands. If it had been just a little bit more to the left, you know, you're looking at possibly it bouncing off of John Hunter's head, or even, you know, hitting one of your media members, Jamie Little, you know, and this all happening live on TV. And then guess what? You're going to be on the front page of all these news channels for the wrong reasons again. So I just don't think it's worth it to do it at the start-finish line and be risking it like this, especially when there's not really much gain. And one of the members of, I believe he's on MRN, is Pete Pistone. He tweeted after the race, the absurd view that the post-race interview should be in victory lane and not on the front stretch at the start-finish line because of people throwing things or chanting vulgar phrases is plain stupid. Here's an idea. How about people act like decent human beings and not moronic imbeciles? He adds in the comment afterwards that it brings immediate emotion and personality to the post-race interview, obviously referencing at the start-finish line, instead of scripted robotic procedure victory lane had become. And I mean, I disagree with those comments completely, mainly because if we're just going to do something off, how about people, this is what people, maybe you should act like this. That's not really going to happen. I mean, we live in an imperfect world where you're going to have people that just ruin things or just don't care about their actions or don't care about the reactions of their actions. They don't care. I mean, here's an idea, you know, why do I lock my doors at night? To keep my family and my belongings safe, when I shouldn't have to do that. People should act like decent human beings. But I'm sorry, I can say that all I want. It's not going to happen, and I'm still going to lock my doors. Saying, people should just act like this. I mean, it's not that hard to accept. I'm sorry, there's people in this world that are going to do bad things. They're going to do wrong things. And as far as the, scripted robotic procedure victory lane have become, how's it any different from what we see on the start-finish line now? The drivers still get out and, for the most part, say the same things. They, thank their sponsors. They thank their team. They thank the fans. They do the same stuff they do in victory lane. I like victory lane better because it gave drivers a chance to really soak in the moment and kind of, get them a moment to catch their breath. And they still came out with a lot of raw emotion. You look at Jamie McMurray when he won the Daytona 500. That was raw emotion, and it didn't happen at the start-finish line. He made his way, after celebrating, all the way back to victory lane, and we still got that emotion. Obviously you can still have that at start-finish line, but it's no different. It happens no more than it does in victory lane, to me, is basically what I'm trying to say. So I think for the safety of drivers, for your media members, it is best to move it back to victory lane, just because, are you willing to risk something like this happening again? What if, you have a Talladega deal like you did back when Jeff Gordon won over Dale Jr., under controversial circumstances, but, he was getting showered and pelted with beer cans, water bottles, Coke cans, everything on the track just because fans didn't like it. What if you run into that kind of deal again? So, as I said, it's time to move it back to victory lane. Let's get back to the way it was. This was a nice experiment, but it's time to pull the cord on it. So now Saturday we had the Xfinity race, and really this race was kind of like, this weekend was kind of like a hurricane. You had the first hit on Friday night with the truck race and the beer can incident, and the Xfinity race was kind of like the eye of the storm. Everything was kind of calm, nothing too crazy, nothing too controversial. It was kind of a straightforward race. You had Ty Gibbs and Josh Berry start on row 1. Stage 1 would be won by Noah Gragson, and Ty Gibbs would finish in second. Josh Berry would finish in third, Justin Allgaier in fourth. Riley Herbst would finish in fifth, and A.J. Allmendinger in sixth. You would have Ryan Sieg in seventh and Landon Castle in eighth. And the top 10 would be rounded out by Ryan Truex and John Hunter Nemechek. Stage 2 looked a lot like Stage 1. Noah Gragson comes away with the stage win again, followed by Ty Gibbs in second. Justin Allgaier, he was able to finish in third, followed by John Hunter Nemechek in fourth. You had Tyler Reddick in fifth and Josh Berry in sixth, followed by Sam Mayer in seventh and A.J. Allmendinger in eighth. Ryan Truex and Riley Herbst, they would round out the top 10 in Stage 2. And as we get into Stage 3 and we start coming down to the end, you had a caution come out with 12 to go as John Hunter Nemechek was really putting pressure on Allgaier for the race lead. There was a lot of gamblers with less than 10 laps to go, which I love. Anytime it comes to these late race cautions, I want to see some smaller teams or guys that maybe didn't have the best car. Let's gamble. Let's give it a shot. Let's go for the win. Try to get ourselves a playoff spot or at least a solid top 5, top 10 finish. You never know. A.J. Allmendinger, he had stayed out along with Tyler Reddick, who was driving for Big Machine Racing. You had them two on the front row. Also up there was Jeremy Clements, Daniel Hemrick, Kyle Weatherman, and Ryan Vargas. So you still had some solid names up there, some guys with some solid cars. They just missed the setup, like AJ and Daniel Hemrick. You also had some of the smaller teams up there trying to just, throw a Hail Mary, like Tyler Reddick. He's a big name, but Big Machine Racing, they're not one of your top teams. Jeremy Clements was up there. And as I said, Kyle Weatherman, Ryan Vargas, just trying something, which I applaud. I love to see stuff like this happen just because you never know what could happen. Unfortunately for Tyler Reddick, his Hail Mary would come up short. He wound up getting into the wall with about 6 laps to go, which brought out a caution. And that pretty much, the gamblers from the previous caution, that wiped out their chances there at the end. Because at this point, Allgaier, who was the best car, he had worked his way back up to second. And he had his teammates Gragson right there with him. So it was, the pressure was on AJ to try and hold him off. But really, AJ, he didn't have much of a chance. He restarted on the inside on the final restart. Just trying something. Maybe he could put some pressure on Allgaier coming out of turn 2. Or get good momentum, get a good launch off of it, and try to race side by side with him as long as he could. Unfortunately, that battle did not last long. Justin Allgaier would take the lead and ultimately win, snapping a 34-race winless streak going back to last year's Darlington race. He last won. As I said, he would get the win. Noah Gragson would finish in second, followed by Riley Herbst in third. You had John Hunter Nemechek finish in fourth and Sam Mayer in fifth. Landon Castle would finish in sixth, followed by Brandon Jones in seventh. A.J. Allmendinger would finish in eighth, Austin Hill ninth, and Daniel Hemrick 10th. So some of those guys that did gamble like A.J. and Hemrick, they were still able to come away with a couple top 10 finishes. So it may not have been a complete win for them, but it wasn't a complete loss either. Junior Motorsports, they continued their dominant run at these tracks with, 3 drivers in the top 10. So good run for that team yet again, second week in a row. And you have Big Machine Racing, Tyler Reddick driving for them this week, Sam Hunt Racing with John Hunter Nemechek, nearly getting their first win. John Hunter was very strong all day, slowly worked his way up through the field. And there towards the end, before that caution came out with about 12 to go, was really putting the pressure on Allgaier. And while it seemed like he was probably fading there, he might have used up his stuff. He still gave it a good run for the money, but ultimately he would come up just a little bit short. But that's going to be a silly season team to watch, I feel like, in the Xfinity Series. They've really come out of the gate swinging this year with the driver lineup they've had, especially with John Hunter. He's been impressive in that car. And I could easily see them, John Hunter maybe making a full-time run with them in the Xfinity Series, especially if there isn't an opportunity to go to Gibbs in the Xfinity or a good solid spot in the Cup Series. I think that would be a good team for him. It kind of fits his MO. He's raced most of his career for, underfunded teams or smaller teams or teams just trying to start out, and has had good results with it. So that'll be interesting to watch as the season progresses. We'll see how silly season shakes out. But, if Sam Hunt Racing is able to get a hold of John Hunter for a full-time Xfinity season, I think that could be a big win for them. Coming to the checkered flag in Turn 4, Ryan Truex and Jeremy Clements would get collected with each other, which was unfortunate for them. They were both in the top 10. Jeremy was one of the guys who had gambled trying to get a solid finish on the day. Ryan, he had run solid all day long in the top 10, and he was really in need of a good finish, trying to catch eyes, especially at Joe Gibbs Racing, that, he deserves either more part-time starts to work his way to a full-time deal, or, just trying to impress them to maybe, have a chance at a full-time ride next year. Unfortunately, bad luck is all the luck he's had so far this season when he's been in that 18 car. I'm not sure how many starts he has left. Hopefully he can kind of scrape it together and get some good solid finishes and finish out some races. But he is one in definite bad need of just getting a good solid finish. So now jumping into what was a wild race Sunday at Darlington for the Cup Series, I'm going to go ahead and just break down the stage finishing orders and the top 10 when the checkered flag fell, just because there's so much to cover what went on between the green and checkered flag. In Stage 1, you had Joey Logano win the stage after starting on the pole. Ross Chastain would finish in second, followed by Christopher Bell in third. Kyle Busch would finish in fourth, and his teammate Martin Truex Jr. in fifth, followed by William Byron in sixth, Denny Hamlin in seventh, Eric Jones in eighth, and then you had Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace finishing ninth and 10th. Then in Stage 2, Ross Chastain would come away with the stage victory, followed by Martin Truex Jr. in second. Joey Logano would finish in third, and Denny Hamlin in fourth. William Byron would finish in fifth, and Eric Jones in sixth. You had Christopher Bell in seventh, and Chase Elliott in eighth. Eric Almirola in ninth, and Daniel Suarez would round out the top 10 in Stage 2. And when all was said and done and the checkered flag fell, you had Joey Logano taking the win, his first on the season. Tyler Reddick would get yet another second-place finish. Justin Haley, he got his best finish of the season in third, followed by Kevin Harvick with a solid fourth-place finish. Chase Elliott would finish in fifth, followed by Christopher Bell in sixth. Michael McDowell, he would come away with a top 10, finishing in seventh. You had Ricky Stenhouse Jr. able to build off his momentum from his second-place finish last week and finish in eighth and get himself another top 10. Austin Dillon, he would finish in ninth, and Daniel Suarez would round out the top 10. So before we get into the big story of the race, the William Byron versus Joey Logano, you had a few things of note happened throughout the race. The first one that came to fruition was the wreck with Brad Keselowski and collecting Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch, last year at Darlington, he was involved in a wreck and flew through the entrance of the garage on pit road, took out some cones, as well as some spectators, fans, and even crew members having to kind of dodge him and jump out of his way. NASCAR would not be happy with how he entered, with the speed and the danger of it. He would be fined $50,000 for how he entered the garage. Well, this year he did just the opposite. After he got caught up in the wreck, got it to pit road, he got to the entrance of the garage area and this time just stopped, got out of his car and walked back to his hauler. He said in his interview after going to the infield care center that the car just wouldn't turn. He couldn't get it into the entrance, so he just stopped it and got out. And watching the replay of the wreck and the damage he had, I truly believe he he didn't have full control of the car as far as how he could turn it to the left. I don't think he would have been able to make it into the garage. That being said, where the wreck happened off of turn 2 would have given him plenty of time to realize that hey, the car's not going to turn left like it needs to. You would have thought he would have stopped on track. He should have stopped on the track and gotten out of the car from there. Just because with the car stopped where it was on pit road, NASCAR would have to keep pit road closed for a few laps under caution so they could get it out of the way and drivers could come in and get their pit stops. Now, whether Kyle knew what he was doing and whether it was, sending a message to NASCAR, or maybe having a little fun in his own way, I'm not sure. I doubt there'll be any penalties come of this incident as compared to last year, just simply because, which is worse? You had him last year running through the entrance with a ton of speed and a damaged car, and you had spectators having to jump out of the way, or this year where he just stopped and, y'all were just delayed a few laps to get into pit road. So I don't think anything will come of that. I'm sure NASCAR will probably have a talk with him, if anything, but it was just very, very interesting to watch. And once again, Kyle is just one of those personalities that you love to hate or you just straight up love, just because the way he can kind of pick back at NASCAR or at other teams, and it just does not seem to bother him. It is entertaining. I'll give him that. From there, you had Denny Hamlin, who was having a good, solid run. He's had a struggle of a season. He does have that win at Richmond. Other than that, it's not been much of a highlight season for him. And this week, he had a solid car. He had been running up there in the lead. Looks like he could compete with Joey Logano and Ross Chastain, who probably had the better cars of the field. Unfortunately, when green flag pit stops were going on, you had him get into the wall coming out of turn 2, which allowed Martin Truex Jr. and Christopher Bell to get by him. Denny immediately brought it to pit road and came back out. Obviously, he had lost quite a bit of time during that. And then you had a caution come out, and when all the drivers came to pit road, Denny had a slow pit stop, putting him further back in the pack. And on that restart, it would really come back to bite him, as there was a big wreck on the backstretch, taking out drivers like Kurt Busch, Bubba Wallace, Cole Custer, Martin Truex Jr., and Eric Jones. They were knocked out of this wreck. And Denny Hamlin was right there in the middle of it where they all were. He got some damage from it. Basically, it looks like Truex, he got loose while he was inside of Ricky Stenhouse. You had Kevin Harvick on his inside. So it wasn't a good situation for Truex to be in. He just didn't have a good restart, got sucked back, and he wound up getting loose. From there, everyone just kind of piled in. From there, you had Kurt make hard contact with the inside wall. And as I said, Bubba Wallace, he got heavy damage from it. Cole Custer, they were immediately out of the race, which was unfortunate because those three drivers, Kurt, Bubba, and Cole, they were in bad need of getting a good, solid finish. They were all running right there in the top 10, and they just had more bad luck fall their way, which has really kind of been Toyota's main thing this season. They just have not had as good of cars, or they've had just bad luck. If they haven't had bad luck, they haven't had any luck at all, really. So that was a big incident, and that would lead to what was the storyline of the race, because on the next restart, you had Joey Logano and William Byron on the front row. You had Joey Logano on the outside. Byron was on the inside. And coming out of turn 2 at Darlington, as I said before, it gets very narrow. The lane really narrows up. Going on to the back straightaway, drivers on the inside can get loose and can wind up either spinning out, collecting the car that's on the outside of them. Numerous things could go wrong for anyone on the inside of turn 2. And Byron seemed to go up and wound up getting into Joey Logano, and Logano wound up making contact with the outside wall. I went back and rewatched the race after I recorded it, and there was an overhead shot live at the time coming out of turn 2, and it actually looked like you had Logano come down on Byron a little bit, just enough, whether it was to help him get a cleaner exit and build momentum going down the back straightaway, or if it was to crowd Byron to get him loose and kind of so Joey could get clear of him. I'm not sure. Either way, you had Logano wind up getting the wall. Nothing dirty or uncalled for, just the product of racing out of turn 2 at Darlington. So and you had, as I said, the bottom lane getting loose. You look at Ross Chastain, who had one of the top cars on a restart. He was on the inside of Hamlin. He got loose and wound up spinning out, hitting the inside wall, taking him out of the race. So, I mean, this isn't something just random that happened or Byron just ran up there and put Logano in the wall on purpose. But before I get too far ahead of myself, after Logano gets in the wall, Byron was able to get himself clear, get a pretty good lead on the field. However, as the laps wound down, Logano was starting to reel him back in. Logano had the best car of the field, really, especially once Chastain had gotten out of that wreck. So Logano was clearly faster. They're coming to the white flag. They're going into turn 3, and Logano just straight up drove through Byron. There was no question about it. He drove into the rear of him, shoved him up the track, and Byron made pretty good contact with the wall. After that, there was no attempt to pass clean, even though, as I said, Logano had the better car. He could have easily made that pass. Let's just say he doesn't get into Byron going into 3. He just stays with him, runs his clean corner. He could have made a move on him in turns 1 and 2, gotten on the inside of him, and possibly repaid the favor in a way and gotten Byron back in the wall, and there would be no controversy, no harm, no foul, kind of like what Byron did, just a racing deal out of turn 2 at Darlington. So Logano, as I said, gets into Byron. Byron winds up going back through the field. Tyler Reddick gets up to second, but Logano was so far ahead, it was pretty much his race to lose. So Logano gets away with the win. William Byron, he was able to still hold on and get a top... No, he didn't get a top 10 finish. I'm sorry. He was able to salvage I believe he did finish in the top 15. Might have been 13th, I believe, if I looked at the running order right. But anyway, after the race, William Byron obviously was not happy. And I'm paraphrasing here. His interview with Jamie Little after the race said, Joey Logano was just an idiot. He's done stuff like that to other guys. And he's a moron, and he can't win a race, so he does it that way. Obviously referencing Logano going through his long winless streak, and that's how he broke it. Meanwhile, Logano, and I'm paraphrasing again what he said in the media center after the race, he said he wouldn't have done that with the bump and run if it wasn't for how William Byron got the lead. Joey said he was lucky his car was in one piece, and any other driver would have been the same way as he was, would have done the same thing. He also made the comment that he wasn't going to be bullied. A few things I have problem with what Logano said. He said he's lucky his car was in one piece. Well, these next-gen cars are a lot more solid than previous cars have been. And Logano didn't make that hard a contact with the wall. Obviously, if he was still the fastest guy on the track and able to run him down like he was, I mean, there was no real threat there for Logano to just be torn apart and, have to try and just limp it to the finish. Another thing, when he said the comment about he wasn't going to be bullied, I don't really think that's that big a threat for Logano to be bullied, just because you look at Logano's history through the sport. Now, at first, when he first came on the scene, was this young hotshot guy everybody was calling the greatest thing since sliced bread. Yes, he was bullied. You had guys like Kevin Harvick who would use him up, and Logano finally had to start standing up for himself, and he did. And now Logano is the one, really, that uses the bumper, that's one of the more aggressive guys on the track. I don't think anyone looks at Logano, any of the drivers, and says, I can rattle him, I can bully him out of my way, I can get him scared of me, whatnot. I don't buy that comment. And going back to what William Byron says he's done it to other guys, and William was pretty much spot on with that comment. I mean, look at Logano's history. You had Martin Truex Jr. at Martinsville, where Truex had worked Logano for lap after lap at the end, gets by Logano clean, and as soon as he does, coming to the checker flag, Logano knocks Truex up the way. He doesn't wreck him, but he does knock him up out the way after Truex had spent, lap after lap just getting by him clean, not wanting to do the same to him. You look at Denny Hamlin at Auto Club Speedway when Logano pretty much said they had a big rivalry going on, and coming to the checkered flag again, Hamlin had gotten ahead of Logano, and Logano even said on his radio, he wasn't going to win. Hamlin was not going to win that race. He was not going to let him. Logano spins Hamlin coming out of turn 4. Hamlin makes hard contact with the wall, winds up having to go to the hospital, and was out for quite a while. I believe he had it was a broken back. And, then the infamous run-ins with Matt Kenseth back in 2015, where at Kansas, Matt was trying to hold on to the lead, trying to get that win to lock himself into the next round of the playoffs where Logano already had. He's blocking Logano going into turn 1, and Logano makes slight contact with the outside wall again, like Darlington, and Logano just spins him going into turn 1. Now, the difference with that is Kenseth got his payback. Kenseth got back to him at Martinsville, and in probably one of the more spectacular paybacks I've ever seen in NASCAR history. He takes him out at Martinsville and pretty much takes away his championship chances. The only difference is Matt Kenseth, he was suspended for 3 races. So I've seen a lot of comments where everybody's talking about, the Hendrick Golden Boys, or, anytime they see a Hendrick driver and one of the Golden Boys of NASCAR get taken out or get what's coming to them, they're not going to be mad. Well, there was a time where it looked like Logano was the Golden Boy, because after Logano wrecked Kenseth at Kansas, you had the CEO of NASCAR at the time, Brian France, getting on a national radio show talking about how brilliant of a move it was for Logano to take out his competition like that and keep him from going further into the playoffs. And then weeks later, Matt Kenseth got his retribution and pretty much knocked Logano's chances of a championship out of the way, and Kenseth gets suspended for 3 races. So for me, I don't like all these arguments I see on social media where, like I said, the whole Hendrick Golden Boys deal. Or somebody had posted, you can't defend what happened at COTA where Chastain knocked AJ out of the way and be mad about this. Well, the difference is at COTA, AJ moved Chastain out of the way first. It was nothing dirty, but AJ put the bumper to Chastain first. Chastain got back to him and repaid the favor. And to me, it's a completely different situation. Whereas, Logano got in the wall a little bit, nothing intentional. It's not like Byron drove him up there and doored him into the wall. And then Logano gets back to him, can get by him clean, and instead Logano just drives through the back of him and puts him in the wall much harder than what he was in. So, to me, it just seems like Logano, I don't know if he's just unable to make the clean pass, especially late in a race. I don't know, because, he does have a history of this. Either way, I do call foul on this move, like I said, just for the fact of how it went down. You got Logano who just runs through the back of him, doesn't try to make a clean pass, and then in his media session acts like, I got payback on him. It is what it is. Anybody else would have done the same thing. I'm not going to be bullied, yada, yada. That's not a good argument, in my opinion, for Logano. It just does not hold water for me. So now, as I said last week, we were going to swap up how we did the Spotlight Awards of the show. This week, we're going to do it based on the throwback paint schemes, the best schemes from the weekend. For the Truck Series, my Spotlight throwback paint scheme is Matt Benedetto. He had a throwback to Sterling Marlin and the Coors Light Silver Bullet paint scheme. The paint scheme that, was really during Sterling's most successful run in the Cup Series, the 2001-2002 seasons. To me, that was the best one in the Truck Series. The Truck Series, normally, there's not a whole lot of hits. as far as good throwback schemes, but Matt DiBenedetto and his team, I feel, really knocked it out of the park with theirs. For the Xfinity Series, my pick is Ty Gibbs and the Interstate Batteries car. It was a throwback to Bobby Labonte back in the 2002 Interstate car with the green, the black, and the red. And what I really enjoy the most about throwback schemes, what really stands out to me is when you're able to match up the sponsor with what the scheme was. That definitely gets you bonus points. If you can match it up with a number, that's even better. But it's awesome seeing a car and that original sponsor still in the sport, still able to throw back and show appreciation to it. And in the Cup Series, this one was tough. You had a ton of excellent throwbacks. And I'm going, you had Petty GMS Racing, Ty Dillon and Eric Jones. They're throwbacks to the cars driven by Lee Petty and Richard Petty. Those cars look great. Harrison Burton's throwback to his father's XI Batteries car with the lightning on it. That was a good one, as well as Corey LaJoie's throwback to Marty Robbins. All excellent throwbacks. But my pick is actually a tie. I'm going to go with two. I'm cheating. I'm going to go with Ross Chastain and his Coca-Cola car, a throwback to when Dale Jr. drove over in Japan. He had a Coke car, and then as well as his father's Dale Sr. Coke car, Daniel Suarez drove that one. But I'm going with Ross Chastain's just for the fact of you had the same sponsor, same number, same paint scheme, it all matched up. That's one reason I'm picking him. Then my other pick is Kurt Busch with a throwback to Bill Elliott's McDonald's scheme in the early 90s. Growing up, that's really what got me into the sport was Bill Elliott and that McDonald's car that, as a kid, you see a McDonald's car and you're like, I'm going with that car. And then just as I knew nothing about the driver, and as I got older, learning more about Bill Elliott, his history in the sport, learning about other drivers in the sport, that car is what kickstarted it all with me being a NASCAR fan. So I couldn't leave that one out. I had to put that one in there just for personal reasons. But it was a pretty decent throwback year this year for the Cup Series. I'm interested to see how much longer this lasts, just because, eventually we're going to run out of cars to throw it back to. But enjoy it while it lasts. It's been fun each year since they've started this and really made it a key point for the Darlington race weekend. But now we're looking ahead. Next week, we're at Kansas Speedway, where Kyle Busch, last year, he swept both the Cup and truck races. We have the Xfinity Series off this weekend. So we have trucks on Saturday and Cups on Sunday. And as I said, Kyle Busch swept the weekend last year. However, looking at the entry list for the truck race, he has not entered in it this year. So it'll be interesting to see who steps up and comes away with the victory in that series. Will it be another KBM truck, or can somebody like Ben Rhodes, who is kind of my pick, can he come away with the win? He always seems to be solid at these kinds of tracks. On the Cup side, the one I'm going to be watching is Tyler Reddick. This is the kind of track that really fits his MO. He's good at finding the different lanes, running the high side, running against the wall, and Kansas could be a place that could happen, especially with this new car. My dark horse to watch is Eric Jones. With the runs he's had at 1.5 miles this year, which have been pretty good, he's definitely going to be another driver to watch. It'll be interesting if he can kind of get over that hump, get a win on the season, and boost himself up into the playoffs. We've got so many different winners already and still 14 races to go till the playoffs. So, we can still start narrowing down points positions for the playoffs, and they could start getting even more kicked out, especially if guys below the top 16 win. So it's going to be interesting next few weeks as the pressure picks up for these guys and how the playoffs are going to start shaking out. Now's when the season really starts to pick up. So it's going to be a lot of fun this weekend, and looking forward to it. I want to thank everyone again for joining me and listening along. Don't forget, if you haven't already, to hit that subscribe button on your Apple Podcast app, or you can hit subscribe on Spotify, Stitcher, or Google Podcast. You can also find me at anchor.fm/3wide3, or follow me on Twitter at 3wide3. Hope y'all have a good rest of your week, and we will meet same time next week and discuss the action from Kansas Speedway.